on the war-ridden lands of Iba. Days had passed since the fall of a mighty kingdom. Beneath a lonely tree sat a little girl, orphaned, dismayed, and soaked in tears. Suddenly, a hand reached out to her. She looked up. It was a young boy. "Why are you crying?" he asked softly. "I lost everyone," she replied, her voice trembling. Tears rolled down her cheeks again. He held her hand. "Crying won't bring them back," he said. "This is the life we were born into. We have to survive. Wipe your tears. I'll protect you." He was only 15, but he already bore the heart of a warrior. "What's your name?" she asked. "Okija," he replied. "And you?" "Ibire." From that moment, they traveled together. They shared fire, shared silence, and soon they shared trust. At night, Okija kept watch. By day, they searched for shelter. Their bond grew, but fate was not done testing them. One day, Ibias wandered into the forest to forage. She heard a sound, turned sharply, and saw something. A masked being, man, monster. She ran, screaming, "Okija, help!" Okija raced through the woods. She collapsed into his arms. "What did you see?" he asked. "A beast," she cried. And then it emerged, tall, silent, masked. Okija stepped forward. His hand trembled, but his spirit didn't. He threw a knife. It missed. The masked figure stopped, pulled off his mask, and laughed. "You injured me. I didn't expect that," he said, grinning. Then others stepped out from the trees. Masked warriors. One of them bowed, speaking. "My prince, you're injured. Shall I kill this boy?" Okija's heart thudded. Ibire trembled beside him. "No," said the prince. "I like him. He has fire. Take them both." Then everything went black. They awoke on their knees. A throne room. A king. And the prince beside him. The king's eyes scanned them. "Where are you from?" "Iba," Okija replied. "The fallen kingdom," the king muttered. "You injured my son, but you have spirit." He looked at Okija. "You shall train in Kada." Then to Ibire. "This one is still unripe. She'll serve in the palace." Okija stepped forward. "Leave her alone!" The prince smirked. A blow struck Okija's head. Darkness. And so, Okija was taken to Kada. There he trained, day and night. He became a shadow on the battlefield, a phantom in the wind, tenacious, tactical, tireless. The prince visited now and then. Their eyes clashed, but blades never did. Years passed, and then the time came. Okija sat on a hilltop watching the sunset. "Tomorrow," he smiled, "I'll see Ibir again." But life is no fairy tale. Drums echoed across the land. Celebration. The prince was taking a third wife. Okija rode into the city, confused. He stopped a villager. "Who is the bride?" "She's not from here," the man replied. "Word is, she's a palace servant." Okija's heart sank. No. He galloped toward the palace. He arrived, too late. There, standing by the prince, was Ibire, veiled, dressed in royal silk. "Why?" Okija roared. I saw her. I loved her. Is she your property? The prince said calmly. Okija surged forward, but guards held him down. Ibire wept silently. In this world, only the strong survive. Okija turned to the king. Ija Iku, he shouted, a sacred call to a death duel. The crowd gasped. Kill him, the king ordered. But the prince raised his hand. No, father, I accept. Tomorrow at sunset, I will end him myself. That night, Okija sat beneath a tree, alone, heart shattered. His love was gone. The next day, the arena was full. Drums echoed and the sky watched in silence. Okija stood, sword in hand. Then, the prince arrived. They clashed, blades sparked, blood spilled. The crowd watched in awe. Okija was a storm. But the prince was a mountain. And with one swift move, Okija fell. The prince stood over him, sword at his throat. Then, stop! A voice pierced the air. It was Ibir. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. She dropped to her knees before the king. Please, she cried, spare him. He is no enemy. He was all I had when the world abandoned me. The arena held its breath. The prince looked down at Okija, then lowered his sword. He bent low, whispered words no one heard, then stretched out his hand. Take my hand, he said. You shall not die today. Okija stared at him broken. Take my life, he murmured. I have nothing else to live for. The prince smiled. Then let me give you something. He turned to the crowd and declared, from this day forth, Okija shall live, not as my rival, but as my sworn brother. The crowd gasped. The kingdom trembled. No one knew what the prince had whispered. But something changed that day. Okija rose again, not as a boy, not as a soldier, but as a son of the kingdom. He served with fire, with loyalty, with unshakable pride. When the prince became king and stepped away from the battlefield, Okija stayed behind, and in the wars that followed, his name became legend. They called him Okija the Olokun, the great bull of war. The fall of Olokun. They say his name carried the weight of thunder. Okija the Olokun, the great bull of war, a man without fear, a soul forged in chaos, born of blade and blood. When he fought, it was as though he danced with spirits. The battlefield was his temple, his blade an extension of his will. He knew no mercy, no fear, no weakness, or so we thought. But even giants stumble, even gods fall, and Okija fell for love. She was Ibir, the king's third wife, graceful, sharp as moonlight, bound by duty, but never truly his. One quiet morning, a knock broke through the silence of Okija's hut. Great Okija, came the voice. The king requests your presence. Okija, still half cloaked in sleep, rose and stared at a single bead hanging on his wall. It was hers, a gift, a memory. Sadness flickered across his war-hardened face. Why the sorrow? We would soon understand. At the palace, drums rolled and the people waited. The king arrived in glory. Not long after, Okija stepped into the throne room. The warrior bowed. Long live my king. The king, warm and fatherly, embraced him. Olokun, he said with pride, I have a task only you can bear. Okija nodded solemnly. By the sea, pale-skinned strangers, have arrived in large boats. They've built camp, settled, go, watch them, learn their purpose, and send word. You will remain there for 1 year. A moment of silence, a glance. Ibir was in the crowd. Their eyes met for a second, a dagger of longing between them. Okija replied, I shall leave at dawn, my king. That night, a shadow crept through the palace garden. A cloak slipped through the trees. Okija opened his door. It was Ibir. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. What if someone sees you? She stepped into his arms. Take me with you, she begged. I can't. The king would kill me. You're his wife. But I'm yours, she said, and kissed him. And they became one. The warrior and the queen, entwined in forbidden flame. Outside in the shadows someone watched, unseen, smiling. At dawn, Okija departed with a handful of men. His last glance at the kingdom was toward her window. A silent farewell. The months passed. The sea folk proved peaceful, curious, strange. Okija wrote of their weapons, their tools, their fire. He sent gifts. But his heart remained inland. Then word reached him. Ibira was pregnant, and the whispers began. Whose child is it? A storm churned inside Okija. Under moonlight, he rode home. When he reached the palace, he brought with him a gift, a box of steel and fire. A weapon he did not understand but knew its power. He entered the throne room. The king smiled. Okija, what a surprise! What of the mission? The strangers are peaceful, he said, and I bring you a gift. He opened the box. Inside, a gun. The king chuckled. Ah, yes, I've heard of these. Wonderful, wonderful. Then Okija asked carefully, I heard the queen bore a son. The king's smile faltered. Yes, finally an heir. Congratulations, my king. Okija bowed, then turned and left. His face was calm, but his spirit raged. That night Ibira came to him again, tears in her eyes. He knows, she whispered. You must run. Will you come with me? I can't. I won't abandon my child. He's mine, isn't he? She looked at him, the pain of truth in her silence. Yes. Then came the knock. Okija grabbed his spear. He opened the door. The king stood there, flanked by guards. Call her out, the king said coldly. Who? Okija replied. Don't insult me, Ibir! She stepped forward. The king roared, You laid with my wife! You forced me into marriage. I never loved you, Ibir screamed. Take her, the king ordered. Okija raised his spear. No one touches her. A tense silence. Then a whistle. An arrow. It flew. Ibir saw it first. She moved. The arrow struck her. She fell into Okija's arms, bleeding, dying. Goodbye, she whispered. Something broke inside the warrior. Okija charged. His roar split the sky. He tore through guards like dry grass. He reached the king, raised his spear. Bang! The king held the weapon from the sea. Smoke, fire, pain. Okija staggered. Still he swung. A blade cut across the king's face. Bang! The second shot knocked him down. Okija knelt, eyes to the heavens. He collapsed. The king trembled, blood trailing down his cheek. No one will speak of this, he said, and walked away. 2 bodies remained. Ibire, cold and still. Okija, kneeling, broken, silent. The warrior, the queen, destroyed by love. Years passed. The boy grew. He whispered that he had his father's fire, his mother's spirit. But no one dared speak their names. Yet some nights, when the wind howls over the sea, they say you can hear a roar. A roar not of man or beast, but of Olokun, the fallen god of war, still mourning the woman he loved, and the kingdom that chose silence over truth. Okun, Part 2, The Son of Fire. They named him Obasi, the flame after the storm, son of the queen, heir to the throne. But no one dared speak his father's name. The king raised him like a prize, not out of love, but fear. For in the boy's eyes, he saw something he could not crush: power, pride, and pain he didn't understand. Obasi grew tall, fierce, and restless. He studied the sword, the stars, the old tongues. But his favorite lessons were always in silence, alone by the cliffs, where the wind spoke in whispers. One day, while walking those same cliffs, he stumbled on an old fisherman, blind but sharp as thorns. "You are his son," the man said. Obasi paused. "Whose?" "The one they silenced, the bull of war, the Olokun." Obasi's blood turned cold. "Speak clearly, old man." And so, the truth spilled like broken calabash. The affair, the love, the betrayal, the arrow meant for a king that struck a queen. Obasi fell to his knees. The world twisted, and in his rage he returned to the palace, eyes burning. The king sat on his throne, old now, but still proud. "You lied to me," Obasi said. "You murdered my mother and my father, my real father. Died on his knees." The king rose, guilt flickering across his face. "Everything I did was for the kingdom," he said. "She was mine. He betrayed me. And you were never meant to know." Obasi drew the weapon gifted long ago by the strangers. A second gun, hidden, waiting. The king stepped back. "Obasi! You are not my father!" the boy growled. Bang! The bullet echoed across the chambers. The king collapsed, blood and regret in his final breath. But as he died, he whispered, "They're coming. You don't know what you've done." And then, silence. Outside the palace, white sails bloomed along the shore. The strangers smiled, not with peace, but with purpose. Their gifts had worked. Their whispers had landed. And now, the kingdom was vulnerable. Three. Ashes of the Kingdom. The red flags fluttered like blood in the wind, each one a silent scream, each one a promise. War had come. Yet Obasi did not flinch. He had seen this day in his dreams, in the trembling of the earth, in the silence of the birds, in the way his father's eyes never met his. But the day it came, it did not come with thunder. It came with footsteps and a voice. A stranger emerged from the shadows of the shrine, cloaked not in armor, but in calm. He did not threaten. He did not roar. He simply spoke. "Obasi, kneel." And Obasi did. Not from fear, not from weakness, but from something far worse: betrayal. For years, a storm had grown in his heart. He questioned the king's silence, the priest's riddles, the gods who never answered. And the strangers, they knew. They fed him whispers, not lies, but twisted truths. They showed him the cracks in Olokun's reign. They spoke of renewal, of a new order where the old ways would fade like smoke. "Why serve a fading flame," they said, "when you could be the torchbearer of a new dawn?" So Obasi offered them the kingdom, and with it, the souls of his people. It ended quickly. There was no battle cry, no thunder of drums, only the hiss of betrayal. The warriors were caught off guard, bound and beaten. The sacred shrines were set ablaze, even the shrine of Ogbunike, where no fire had touched in centuries. The gods, it seemed, had turned their faces away, or perhaps they had already left. The people did not scream. They knew what it meant to lose. They had tasted war before. But this was different. This was death without a fight. Silence without honor. And the strangers smiled, not with peace, but with possession. They did not come for harmony. They came to consume. When the smoke cleared, Obasi stood alone in the heart of the ruins, a child amid cinders. At his feet lay the crown of Olokun. It no longer shone. It was cracked, blackened, and cold. He picked it up, held it to his chest. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a funeral. He looked around, no cheers, no people, just ashes and bones. The great kingdom, once the jewel of the riverlands, the voice that silenced enemies, the land where even gods bowed, had fallen. Not with a roar, not in a blaze of glory, but with a kneel and a whisper. I just wanted to be seen. And so ends Olokun's line, not by sword or storm, but by a son.